Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 8, Episode 30 of our weekly Q&A videos. Our first question this week, getting straight into it, comes from R3's Films, and they say, do you think going for 800 packs are worth it for legendary gear? It's a 5% chance, and I was able to get Astro Harness from one. Also, good luck on exams. So as you can tell, this question came from a little while back. Exams went pretty well, I think, overall.
Nice.
But
Congratulations,
for the question itself.
Yes, it's an interesting question. I think we've answered it in bits and pieces over time, and it's probably worth revisiting, mainly because this person asked really nicely too, and reminded us that it might have slipped through the cracks. So here goes. Because normally we answer it in terms of the characters, and if you look at it from the point of view of metal characters, the 400 is actually as good as the 800 for getting metal packs, for getting metal characters when we look at how much Nth Metal it costs you per character on average. However, the legendary gear, so if you look at the breakdown, so 800 Nth Metal gives you a 5% chance at legendary. When we say legendary, we mean the 4.5 star gear. And when we say 4.5 star gear, for people who haven't known us long enough, that's our nomenclature because there's all that confusion, right? You get a 1-star gear, which is clear, becomes 2. 2 becomes 3. 3 becomes 4. 4 becomes 5. So how do you name them without creating some sort of confusion?
Yeah.
And I think I like the idea of giving it the half, where sometimes it's half a star higher, sometimes it's half a star lower, but it really tells you which one's which, right?
Yeah.
So these are 4.5 star gears. 800 Nth Metal gives you 5% or 1 in 20 chance, which is way more than the 400, which is a 2%, which is a 1 in 50 chance. So that's more than double. So you double the cost, but you get more than double the chance of legendary. And the 200 is 0% chance. You don't get any legendary gears. So the key, I think, is looking at... I mean, I don't know that you can put an absolute value in Nth Metal because a lot of those legendary gears are multiplayer exclusives, with the exception of the 12. I want to say 12 of the 12 that are exclusive for Survivor. And when I say exclusive, I mean they're in these packs and stuff. But normally, how you get them, where you have more than a 1 in 50 or 1 in 20 chance of getting it, is... Yeah. Actually, that's not entirely true. Sometimes the rare drop is the chase gear of those sets. Sometimes is really, really hard to get.
That's true.
All right. So it depends on how much Nth Metal you've got, how willing you are to use the refund glitch, and how many different gears that you want. Because it's we sort of tried to do this with the special challenge packs. Yeah. We got a little bit into the weeds. And if we keep it really simple, so there's 32 legendary gears by my count. If we exclude Crown of Krypton, which is one of those ones that should not be available unless somebody's been hacking. So 800 pack, 1 in 20 chance of getting legendary gear, and a 1 in 32 chance of getting what you want if there's only one thing that you want. Which translates into a 0.15, we've rounded off, 0.156 chance, 0.156% chance of getting a specific gear with one pack.
So, like, basically nothing. Yeah. In terms of the amount that you need to spend or the number of times you need to reset, it's pretty astronomical if you're looking for only one specific type of gear.
Yeah. And let's say, so there are lots of legendary gears. Maybe there's 2 gears that you want. If you want 2 gears that are in that legendary group, you need to get at least 11 legendary gear drops. So that 1 in 20 chance, that 5%, it has to happen 11 times to give you half a chance of getting one of the gears that you want.
And so that's, with 11 legendary gear drops, that's 8,800 Nth Metal. Just if you're keeping all your legendary gear to even get to a specific one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty rough.
And you multiply that by 20 for the number of packs that you'd have to buy to get, on average, 11 legendary gear drops, right?
Yeah.
If you want 1, you need at least 22. And this is if you have the time to refund every pack that you buy so that you only spend on legendary gear drops. And you're still spending almost 9,000 Nth Metal if there's 2 things that you want. I don't know. It's to
get one of the 2 things.
Yeah.
And then all the other legendary gear.
So the amount of time that it takes to get that much Nth Metal, part of me thinks, I mean, it's almost if you think about it, there's really two pieces of legendary gear that are the most important.
Mm.
Tentu Totem, Master's Death card.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are going to completely change the way you play and going to make a huge difference in how you grind. Makes all the fights faster. Mm-hmm. And that's why I sort of picked the number 2, right? But then if you're spending what's 1 in 20 chances 8,800. What's 8,800 times 20?
Oh gosh.
176,000 nth metal.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess...
And that's if you're not resetting.
That's if you're only resetting to just get legendary gears and keep all the legendary gears. But if you're not resetting... Sorry.
Yeah, that's if you're not resetting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But if you are resetting and only sticking with legendary gears, I guess the other option is you could always just reset everything unless it's the gear that you want.
Yeah.
But then you're going to be spending a huge amount of time doing that work.
Yeah, so it's either a lot of resources or a lot of resetting. It's not... If you get lucky, I mean, the 5% chance means that every once in a while you will get a legendary gear. But the... Getting lucky, like, manipulating the odds with a reset is not actually that helpful here. Right? Maybe if you want to open like 4 or 5 packs at a time, you could up your chance a little bit, but you're still talking about like doing hours and hours of just doing resets, unless you already have a huge amount of nth metal saved up. And so it's not the best way to get any specific reward. If you're okay just getting anything rare, right, that's when resetting is fair. Because if you're okay with legendary gear or an nth metal character or like a gold character that you happen to want, right? Or something like that. Then all of a sudden, the chance of getting one of any of a set of a bunch of different things is pretty okay, right? If it's just getting something new, that's fine. But if you're looking for specific drops, it's a good way of juicing your collection up in sort of one way or another.
Right.
But it's not a great way of getting specific things.
For targeting stuff, yeah. And that's actually a really good principle you bring up, because I think when you've got a pack that has random drops, the more of the things in it that you want, the better deal that pack is.
Mm. Even if you take into account the reset glitch and you're assuming that you're only going to use the currency if you actually get what you want, then it's a better deal for your time, right? Because you're either trading in your in-game currency for the reward or trading in your time for the reward, and less in-game currency.
So then it becomes a different calculation too, right? Like when you value, how much do you value time? And it's not a straight up apples and oranges comparison, because if you value your time, maybe you could generate as much resources quickly. And if, in that case, definitely not worth doing a reset. But if you can't generate as fast, but you'd actually enjoy what you're doing more, it's like, you know what it's like? It's like transit. Driving to work and taking 30 minutes to drive. I would actually rather, if I could do public transit, take it 45 minutes and have that time where I don't have to pay attention to traffic and I can do something fun instead of driving.
I mean, that was my situation, right? When I was busing into school, where I actually didn't really mind it. And it was a good chunk of time. Like, it wasn't fast.
Yeah.
But it was, I would listen to music or podcasts. And for music, I would listen to my Discover Weekly. And I found a bunch of new music that I really liked. And when it was podcasts that I liked and that I wanted to listen to anyways. Right. And it was a good time to sit and not be anywhere where I even could do work if I wanted to on the bus.
Right.
And it had some value to me as time to decompress. Right before I headed into school or at the end of the day, I had some time to either wake up properly or wind down. And it was, planning around needing that time was not always the best.
Right.
But the actual time itself wasn't unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some sort of value to looking at that, where if you're, it's not a foregone conclusion that you're spending time on this game, but even if we're just assuming that you're going to spend the time in the game one way or another,
right.
Whether you would have more fun resetting or playing does actually factor in. And at the end of the day, the more resets you have to do, the less exciting getting something in a pack feels, and the more it just feels like you deserve it, right? And I think that's an important thing about your mindset too, is if you're opening a pack and you go, oh, I got lucky, right? That's cool. If you're opening a pack and you're going, oh, I have to reset, oh, I have to reset, oh, I have to reset, and you go, oh,
finally. A jinx.
Yeah, it might not
we didn't script that.
It might not be as fun, right?
Yeah.
And to some people, it can still be fun and exciting, Yeah. There is still that, like, you could go, oh, I got lucky, right? That's really cool. That's awesome. But the other problem too is that if you're only looking for one and you got that 0.15% chance or whatever, then that's not, you're doing it so much that by the time that you get to it, you probably haven't gotten that.
Right.
If you got one thing that you really want and a bunch of other rewards sprinkled in, and you've got those sort of mini rewards leading up to it to keep you actually motivated and maybe a little bit more happy with it, and then you get that really exciting thing. But it is also important to say, what is, how am I going to feel about this? And, am I going to enjoy this? Is it going to be grinding? And then afterwards, I go, well, at least I got this character for this game, right? Like, how much does that digital good matter to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought of something while you were talking. I can't remember what it was, but it was, I totally agree with that. Like, there's something that about certain kinds of glitches and grinding and cheating. Oh, what I was going to say was that if you're going to... So the currency... It makes more sense to do that kind of stuff when the currency is scarcer, when it's harder to get. And I think if you're going to be doing that kind of cheating with Nth Metal, for example, because a lot of stuff you get out of the Nth Metal Pack is good.
Yeah.
If you're going to be doing that, then I would actually recommend, if you're going to spend that time, spend it playing Phantom Zone. When the Phantom Zone event is around, do all those requirements and do it... use a glitch to reset the Phantom Zone when you're done playing.
Yeah.
And just play it over and over and over. That's actually a way better use of your time. And
the Phantom Zone gives you more flexibility in how you play, actually.
Yeah. And here's the key. It is playing. Like we were just talking about, right? Like, it makes a difference when something that you do is actually playing instead of a whole mechanic, a whole grinding mechanic that has nothing to do with the game.
Yeah, and the good news is that there will actually be downtime from the Phantom Zone. So if you accumulate a bunch of credits and play the game a bunch, and then when it's down, if there's not that much stuff that you want, that's a better time to spend your time doing the reset glitch. If you go, I don't really want much else. I just want the gears and maybe the metal characters, so I'm just going to spend time now. Well, I couldn't be doing Phantom Zone anyways. Then, that might be a good balance.
What I love about Phantom Zone, too, is it's something that you can do in the background while you're achieving another goal.
Yeah.
It pays off most handsomely when you're playing multiplayer online, and you can still do other stuff. You can still play Survivor. It still can satisfy some of the requirements. But I like it. I guess I would like it more if I didn't need more Valorium alloy.
Yeah.
But I still like it because it means that you're getting through and getting to play a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time.
So there we go.
Yeah.
So that's that. So the answer is, as it often is with us, it depends a little bit. It can be, but probably not for specific gear.
Yeah.
So our next comment comes from D122086, and they say, word on the interwebs is NetherRealm's TM is allegedly crafting a fighting game for Marvel TM. What does this spell for Injustice 3 TM? So that's the comment.
I would totally play it. If it was that kind of gameplay, I would totally play it. I think I've been pretty honest about what my attachment to Injustice. First has always been the characters. And I think I've got as much attachment, or maybe more, to Marvel characters as I do to DC characters.
Yeah. Because the problem is that there's not a lot of games that scratch the itch that this game does. And most other games that do it don't do it in the right way. Or they'll be one part or another where you go, okay, I like this for the same reason, but it's not as holistic a package. And so if a Marvel game did this, we wouldn't care, right? If there's something that's a lot like this, because it's a pretty well made game. For a mobile game, it is genuinely. We've talked, about what makes games fun, right, at length not too long ago, so we won't delve right back into it. But it's there's a lot of richness in it, and it's a deep well, and I've had a lot of fun with other games, other mobile games too, but a lot of them don't have the same staying power as Injustice. There's a game recently that I was thinking about, and I was like, oh, that was really an interesting idea for a game. Why did I stop playing that? And I went back through my previously downloaded games list, and specifically found it. It's called Overload, and the way that the game works is that it's like an inventory management game. I think I've talked about it a while ago, a long time ago on the channel. But it's an inventory management game where you're beating up enemies, and when you beat them, they drop loot into your inventory. They drop weapons, shields, and armor.
Right.
And what you do is you have to combine them in your inventory and fit space for all of them. And you're basically playing loot Tetris. And the idea is that every time you combine them,
that's good.
Every time you combine them, they level up.
Yeah.
It's like Loot Tetris, except stuff isn't locked in, so you're constantly reorganizing on the fly. You can move stuff however you want, and it just drops down, like not like physics, but like just straight down.
Right.
And everything takes a different amount of space. So you, for weapons, there's swords and daggers, and swords are up and down, and they're 3x1 blocks. And daggers are smaller, they're 2x1 blocks, and they're horizontal. And shields are 2x2, and armor is 2x2. And then there's like little healing items that you can use to heal. And it's a really interesting concept, and the actual moment-to-moment gameplay is pretty satisfying because you're balancing the part of the thing too is that at the end of the game, anything that you have in your inventory you sell, and so that's the primary way that you get currency, like in-game money, is by having good weapons and armor in the tank.
Right.
And so you're balancing putting the weapons and armor, because they have limited durability and they break throughout your fighting. You're balancing putting those on your guys to fight and not die, right? And inventory management and making sure that you have enough space for the new stuff to drop in, because even if you're not using or combining the items, they can be organized messily in a way that wastes a bunch of space and doesn't have space for new stuff, or organized well in a way that, you can stack the maximum amount of stuff. And then on top of that, you're sort of managing, well, how close am I to dying? Should I put a better weapon on, or should I use a health item? Should I put this weapon on now, or should I save it and combine it to be more powerful, because then it'll deal more damage and have better durability? And so there's a lot of really fun stuff in the moment-to-moment gameplay, and the in-between rounds gameplay sucks. Because there's a bunch of upgrade stuff. There's like, you're upgrading bases, you're dealing with quests, you have sort of equipment and a bunch of stuff like that. And the problem is that what it mostly boils down to practically is just grinding for materials to get slightly better stuff so that you can beat harder guys. And so the actual rounds themselves are really fun, but and the gameplay is really fun. But what determines how well you're going to do going into a new fight is basically just how much grinding you've done.
Right.
And you either just... It's like Injustice, if Injustice only had like the single player fights, where it was like, are your stats good enough? If your stats are good enough, then you probably win. And if your stats aren't good enough, then they're not very great.
But it's funny you say that, because that's what Injustice used to be.
Yeah.
And it feels like, all right, so this is the other thing about Injustice. Not only did it start off as a pretty good game, but when people were playing it long enough to hit that kind of limitation, they changed it. Yeah. And so that, people who've played recently may not know this, but it used to stop at the 6th screen of the offline, the story mode. Bonus Battle 6 was the last one, and the strongest your character could be would be level 40, Elite 5. Yeah. And then when they changed it enough to take it to another level, so that, it probably feels way more frustrating to somebody starting now, because there's just so much to do. Yeah. It wasn't like that before. And everybody had basically gotten their collection up to 40 and Elite 5. Then they introduced multiplayer, they introduced gears at the same time. And then it sort of opened a whole new world of grinding and collecting and playing at the same time. And the thing is, even before, right? What Injustice had was it had a lot of variety, and it had a lot of choices in the in-between gameplay. Yeah. So Overloot, the game that I'm talking about, has much better moment-to-moment gameplay, in my opinion, than Injustice. I find it more satisfying. I find it something that requires you to think more and on your feet. It is more varied, in my opinion. But then when you're in the in-between gameplay, the grind is there, and in Injustice there still is the grind, but there's very little to no decision-making in how you're investing your resources. It's playing to get better stats, to make your numbers bigger, and the enemy numbers smaller, so that you win. Whereas in Injustice, it's like, which character do I level up? Who do I even put into this fight? How do I gear them up? Do I want to try a new gear? And then when I have my resources, do I want to spend it on one of these 5 things? And each of these things is going to do something very qualitatively different. And a lot of them can change sort of my trajectory for how I want to play, or what my goals are. Whereas in this game, it's just like, okay, what do I have enough money to level up? I want to level up this thing. And then that's it. And it's really limited. Like you level up gear by getting multiple copies of the same gear, and you can't mix and match. There's no like gear resource in the game. And so it's just a bunch of little stuff like that, where it's like there's not a lot of sort of meaningful
choices in the in-between gameplay. And so for all of the fun mechanics, and I really, like, I was thinking about the game, and I was like, man, I want to play that again.
Mm-hmm.
And I downloaded it, I'm like, they did something really cool with that.
Yeah.
And for all of that, you know, I play it for, like, an hour, and I go, yeah, okay, I see what this game is doing. I'm probably done with it again.
Right.
Whereas, you know, you pick up Injustice, and you see what the game is doing pretty fast, too.
Right.
But it has a lot more longevity, and I think there's very few mobile games. There's more like PC and console games that do that, but there's not even that many games, period, that have this amount of stuff in them.
So implied in the original question too, and when it says what does this spell for Injustice 3, that the implication is that Injustice 3 without the interference, let's say, of Marvel would have been a really good game. And I'm not even convinced that's the case. Like, it wouldn't make me sad that they put the time into Marvel instead of putting time in Injustice 3, because Injustice 2...
maybe Injustice 3 won't be made at all.
Yeah, because Injustice 2 sucks.
Yeah.
So there's the kind of game design in Injustice 2 where it rewards you for not playing, and it punishes you for playing the characters. The mechanic where you have to send your guys on missions, so you can't use them in fights, and it rewards you better if you send better guys. Yeah. That's literally, it's a mechanic that dissuades you from wanting to play the game that you actually like the most. Because that waiting mechanic is not playing. All that is a little bit of planning, and then for that planning that you have to wait out, you take away the joy that you could have of having fights with those guys.
Yeah.
So Injustice 3 may have been okay, may have been crap. If NetherRealm's built a game like Injustice, it's like World War I. It was not World War I at the time. Like great Injustice. Like the world Injustice, like the only Injustice game. If they built it like that, I would love it. But they won't, because they've already shown us that they can't stick to it, and they've already gone to Injustice 2, and I don't have a lot of high hopes for Injustice 3.
Yeah.
But I'm totally willing to be proven wrong. Because we did play Injustice 2. We did videos on Injustice 2 when it first came out. We were hopeful, and we were disappointed.
Yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, at the end of the day, if NetherRealm is making a game along these lines, then we'll give it a shot, right? Either way. And what really matters the most is the sort of smaller choices that they make that might not, the ramifications might not be as immediately obvious.
Right.
Yeah. So there we go. Our next
few questions
are all from the same person. They're all from Young Chiayin. And they say, do you think Killer Croc can team with Arkham Knight Catwoman and Prime Hawkgirl? So that's the first question. You can answer that maybe.
You could. Like, a lot of these questions are interesting because they're talking about variations on the teams. And some of them are interesting and some of them are a lot less interesting because it feels like there's a really obvious answer there. So do you think Killer Croc can team with Arkham Knight Catwoman and Prime Hawkgirl? You could. We've done the team with Killer Croc and Arkham Knight Catwoman, but we had Arkham Knight Batgirl. And so when you look at deviating from what you've got, what would you lose? What's the opportunity cost? That's one sort of thought that I think should play a little bit more prominently when we think of this, because I think, to me, that's in some ways almost an ideal team in terms of making it fun. You've got Special Specialist, you've got Arkham Knight Batgirl, who offers this amazing rescue feature, plus the chance to be a devastating one-hit KO splash damage character who changes the whole flow of the fight just because somebody gets almost knocked out. And so taking her out, what would you lose? You would lose some of Arkham Knight Catwoman's damage over time. It's not as powerful. You would lose her Arkham Knight Catwoman being saved, so being able to get knocked out.
Yeah.
You would lose Arkham Knight, and for both of them, Killer Croc and Catwoman, you would lose the ability for her to come in stun and do a wickedly high damage stun attack.
Yeah.
And for what? So you could tag Arkham Knight Catwoman and Arkham Killer Croc in and out faster? I don't think you gain enough to make it worth it. Yeah.
And so that's the question if you have everybody. And if you don't have everybody, the real answer is you just got to play it for yourself and see.
Right.
Because the other thing, too, is no matter what advice, when you ask for a specific team, you can say, would X team do Y? Like, would this team be able to trigger this effect or have this synergy? And that's a yes or no question. Is this a good team? How you play matters so much, right? And what you like to play and what you enjoy, right? And like stuff like character speed, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, it matters a lot to us. There probably are some people that character speed doesn't matter nearly as much to.
Yeah, let them play Boss Solomon Grundy.
Yeah. And so the part of the thing too is that whenever we tell you how good or bad a team is, what we can speak to is our specific skills and then the sort of objective strategies and synergies and stuff.
Right.
And so no matter what, whenever we answer a question for any one individual person, we're always going to be answering based off of incomplete information because if you have it, play with it and then you'll figure out the answer really fast.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason when we've got a full roster, there's a reason we build a team like that. Everybody has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the next comment from the same person, and they say, I don't have Batman, Ninja, Catwoman. Can I use Gold Catwoman for this team or Hawkgirl?
So this was the Wonder Woman 600, Batman, Ninja, Catwoman, and Teen Titans Raven team. And a lot of these questions you can answer by thinking about the principle of, this is a team I'm starting off with, and instead of us telling you how great it is, we show you how great it is, right?
Yeah.
And if you want a team to still be as good by replacing it, you think, what are you losing and what do you gain?
Yeah, so what role does Batman, Ninja, Catwoman play? What is her role in the team?
And in this team, she is a huge basic damage dealer, right?
Yeah.
Teen Titans Raven is a really great specialist for a lot of different reasons. Her special 2 is ranged. It does a huge amount of damage. Each of those hits can be enough to knock somebody out. It hits across multiple people. Mm-hmm. And she's got a really interesting mechanic where most of the gaps between her hits do not trigger Raven Prime.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I think, between the second last and last hit will trigger her health swap, but the other ones don't. So she is a perfect counter. You don't even have to play her differently. Raven Prime is a non-factor.
Yeah.
So you don't need another specialist. If you're going to replace her, just Batman Ninja Catwoman, you need a basic damage dealer because you don't have one. If you're fighting a team where they may be able to, say it with Astro Harness, where they're able to eat the damage and still survive,
yeah,
you need somebody to come in. If they have somebody that keeps you from doing specials, then you need somebody who can do a bunch of basic damage. How does who is it? Batman Ninja or
Gold Catwoman.
Gold Catwoman. So that's Batman Returns Catwoman.
Yeah.
How does she do anything? She's not really a great basic damage dealer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's a damage over time specialist potentially, and she is a booster for damage over time specialist, but
yeah,
I don't think she does much. Same with Hawkgirl. She's not a great character. She's a great support character. She's great for a team where you want the tag-in effect, and you get more tag-ins because of her.
Yeah.
But who's going to be your
basic damage?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, what you'd want to do is find whoever your best basic damage dealer is, and then put that person in.
And if you're going to use them, make sure, if you can, find a woman that does it, because Wonder Woman 600 is otherwise wasted. If you're going to replace Batman Ninja Catwoman, and you're not going to put another woman in, maybe you don't need Wonder Woman 600 because you're losing a bunch of her
value.
Her value, her passive ability. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there we go. And the third question, same user, they say, ever thinking of comboing Claw of Horus with Master's Death Card? Because with it, on second tag in, it can shatter multiple gear without using special. Tested and it works, but this method came from Scopos.
It's definitely interesting, right? There's lots of stuff that you can do that's fun, where you can, the frustration of facing somebody with a lot of defensive gears, and then be able to strip them all away, like really quickly with Claw of Horus. I love that.
Yeah, so it's cool.
Yeah. The problem with this strategy is something that you're going to fight with a lot, and this is a perfect run. This is 5 ultimates with our fastest team, and you can tell by how long this video... Well, maybe you can't, because if we end up running out of time and still having to stick some more footage, it'll end up running longer. But we're going to be doing this averaging just about 7 minutes of a ladder.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. So the limitations, the biggest limitation, it's a second tag in. So using Master's Death Card to strip gears instead of just doing Special 2 as part of Tantu Totem Master's Death Card loadout means that you're taking away some of your ability to do max damage.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say you got Tantu Totem Master's Death Card and you're going to put that on the same team. Could the third gear be Claw of Horus? Sure. But what you give up, at least on the teams that we use like this, with, say, Teen Titans Raven, is you're giving up power gen, which can be useful to negate the effect if you've got a power gen dampener on the opponent's team. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're giving up a boost to Special 2, which is what you're doing with your Special 2 specialist, right? With that loadout.
Yeah.
And it's a neat effect, but it costs too much to implement, because you'll see in the Teen Titans Raven team, I mean, we're blasting them. She doesn't have very many opportunities to tag in a second time.
Yeah.
And those gears tend to not be an issue because she just does so much damage. She just blasts right through them, except for maybe Astro Harness. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, though. I think better, if you're looking at a strategy of getting multiple effects from Claw of Horus, I think Enchantress is better. Enchantress happens at the end of your special. So you do a special 1, you time your next special 1 when the skulls are flying in, and then you can shatter multiple gears because each of those skulls counts as a chance of Claw of Horus. Mm-hmm. And so the limitation of that strategy is you need 2 bars, but you don't need to tag in and then tag out and then tag in again, which is slower than generating 2 bars of power.
Yeah.
And it lets you keep your Master's Death card on the special specialist or your main special specialist. And so maybe, I guess the idea is maybe you could try that strategy, putting Master's Death card and Claw of Horus on a team that you expect to not be as strong. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, all right, so this is the thought I had after thinking about this question a bit. If you were going to try, I was thinking maybe I'd try again with the Hawkgirl Prime and the Batgirl and the Luchador Bane team, because now that we've got Necron Scythe, both Batgirl and Luchador Bane, you can maximize their stun boosted special 1. Does a buttload of damage. You tag them in and out really fast because of Hawkgirl. And because you're tagging them in and out, in those times where you've got people who are reviving and you actually need them to come in, Batgirl, because when her stun is built into her special, Luchador Bane, his stun is built in his tag in. So you give Master's Death card to Batgirl so it doesn't cost you, right? Because if you have Master's Death card and Luchador Bane, you know what happens. They're unstunned every time. And then you can swap in and out. If she doesn't do enough damage, maybe she'll do enough to shatter all the gear. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so that I'd consider using Master's Death card combined with Claw of Horus on her. So yeah, stripping gear is great against defensive teams. That's the biggest value. So how much time are you going to spend setting that up when you could just be doing maximum damage per second instead?
Yeah, and so, the main value of this gear, or this combination, is when you're in a position where you are fighting enemies with gear consistently, but your team is in a place where you're not winning consistently, and you're valuing consistent wins over speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off. And for us, mostly, we don't need to make that trade-off ever, because it would be costing us speed. And it'd be cool. It's fun. Yeah. Right? In the same way, damage over time teams aren't always the fastest teams. It is a fun idea, and it's worth trying to have fun with the game, right? But from a pure efficiency standpoint, it's probably ever so slightly suboptimal.
So I want to give a shout out to the Injustice Wiki, and I think if I remember, I'm going to link it in the description. But they actually have a lot of different ways of trying to maximize Claw of Horus. So if you look up Claw of Horus as a gear,
ridiculous amount of practical strategy detail.
Right. So getting multiple gear shattering effects, lots of fun. Lots of ways to do it. Some are more useful than others, but if you're looking for a fun thing to try them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there we go. We have our next sort of questions, and they come bundled 2 together. Our first one comes from Viany, and they say, "Wait, what? They're father and son. They both sound young and talk to each other as if they were just best friends." And the next comment comes from Devlin16, and they say, "Great show, guys. As a father myself, nice to hear affirmation of some things I've done and insights to others I could still do." So 2 good questions. One name has a little bit more star power, I have to say.
Yeah, it's Devlin.
Devlin, yeah.
You know what? I think there's one thing a trap that's very easy to fall on. And I remember thinking, it reminded me of a phrase I used a lot when we used to do more commentary for the fights. Mm-hmm. It is very tempting to want to take credit when things go well and blame yourself when things go wrong. And listen, there are going to be times where you actually make a difference. Yeah. But I think there's also going to be a lot of times that you won't be able to tell a difference when it's more the person that your kid is defines a lot about what happens. That it's out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is to sort of really get out of the way and give somebody the chance to be the best person that they can be.
Oh, there's there are terms for this in developmental psychology, and some of them are escaping me right now. But there's the idea that the environment and sort of genetic that sort of the type of what you were talking about is, you know, maybe not exactly genetics, right? That might be a sort of a reductionist way of looking at it.
Right.
But the type of person your kid is, the way that they're presenting, we can call it phenotype, right? Because that is just sort of all the forward-facing stuff. It's practically. And so there's a bunch of different things. There's reasons why sort of nature and nurture interact. And one of the ways is just that kids tend to be the kids and their parents, you know, because the genes are from the parents if they're biological. They tend to match up sort of coincidentally in that way. But there's a really important factor, which is evoking an environment where the way that the kid behaves or the way that a person behaves in their environment can alter the environment to suit them better or worse, or they fundamentally change sort of the environment that they're in. And I think that is an important thing to note, is that, you know, that's one of the things that they find a lot with mental health or in like personality disorders or things like schizophrenia, where there's correlations with different troubles at home. But part of the thing is that having really, really poor mental health can create challenges at home, can strain family dynamics. And so the order that those things happen in isn't always clear, and it often goes sort of both ways. So you are right that, you know, I'm not like taking away, I think I'm half supporting you, what you're saying. But just that there is a sort of an important, it's important to consider the impact of individuals on their environment that then impacts back on them. So your relationship with anybody, but even if your kid, it seems like it's more one way, like you set up something for them, you know, there always is going to be a back and forth, and there's going to be a lot more sort of bouncing, and you're going to be, what you end up doing is going to be modified a lot more by how your kid is than you probably initially realize.
And I'm a big fan too, especially when we don't know how things are going to turn out. I'm a big fan of the golden rule, where you treat people, and that includes your kids, the way you would want to be treated yourself. Because even if things don't turn out exactly how you want, you don't end up regretting being a decent person. And it's harder actually not to be decent all the time. Those are the kind of mistakes that are very easy to make, where you maybe aren't nearly as good as you'd like to be as often as you should. And I'd rather have a regret where I wasn't able to stick to my plan than to think that, whoa, that was a really crappy plan and I put all that energy into doing it and I wasted my time doing it.
Yeah. So there we go. And we've talked about the parenting stuff before, so I think that's a probably good amount of stuff to leave it on here. Yeah. Nice to see those comments. Anyways. And to finish up, we have some people that we'd like to say some things to. So first off, a shout out to Eliza, should I eat fast food Caton? She's constantly craving McDonald's but wants to eat healthy.
I've got a story about McDonald's. I don't know. We're out of footage. I apologize.
Before you get into it, this shout out was brought to you by Delicious Garbage. Okay. Story time.
Okay. So I'm really dating myself here, because there was one week, and I can't even remember which week it was. I was probably, it was senior in high school, maybe senior in high school.
Maybe. Okay.
Or in might have been grade 13. It's the equivalent of senior, because there's only 4 years in American high school, right? Yeah. So we used to have grade 13. So there was a promo this one week at McDonald's. And I've told you this before, haven't I?
You've told me this, yeah.
Big Macs were 99 cents. You didn't have to buy anything else. And this was back when Big Macs weren't like free. They were like, I think $3 a pop. There was a special promo for the entire week. They weren't
free?
Well, no, like they weren't like, it's not like this was their going price. This was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like they were already $3 a pop or something. And so you didn't have to buy anything else. You didn't have to buy fries. And our dinner time was like 5:30. School was out at 3. And I love Big Macs. I don't anymore. I can't eat that stuff now. I'm living a low-fat lifestyle. Even like the smell of it makes me a little bit sick now. Yeah. But on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I don't even know why I remember that exactly, but Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that week, I went to McDonald's after school.
Yeah.
I had 2 Big Macs each day. And then I still went home and had dinner because I loved it so much. And it was so cheap that I could not help myself. It was, at the time, I thought, this is glory. This is, I'm never going to be this like food happy guy. Lots of other times you can be happy, but be happy about food. I thought I'm never going to be this happy about food again. And I'm right. It never, I think I never got, I've enjoyed lots of other food more than I think I've enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. But the combination of being able to eat that and get it so cheap and being able to sort of, I don't know, squeeze it in, like that, there's the illicitness of it and still stuffing down dinner after, it was something special.
It's a weird story.
It is a weird story. Yeah.
Okay. So that's our McDonald's content. And we'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the wonderful folks who support us on Patreon. So that is Consul Peasant and Edwoon, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier. We have Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier, Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo, who support us on the credited level. And Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 241, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E. at the gratitude level. Thank you all so much for your support. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.